are holding by the Mishnah on Daf Samech Aleph, the first Mishnah on the page. So, Ires et Almana. So, we're talking about a Kohen Gadol, who a Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry and who is not allowed to marry. So, one of the people Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry is Almana. Now, Ires et Almana v'nitmane liot Kohen Gadol. Let's say he was not a Kohen Gadol. This guy was a regular Kohen who was allowed to marry the Almana, and he did Kiddushin to the Almana, and then they chose him to become Kohen Gadol. Can he do the Nisuin now?
Say it
Right?
again.
So, he was a regular Kohen.
Uh-huh.
He did Kiddushin to an Almana, which is allowed. And then he was selected to be the Kohen Gadol.
Okay.
So can he go through with the marriage and
Or finish it up
and have chuppah with her or no? So it says Yichnos, he's allowed to have chuppah. U'ma'aseh Yoshua ben Gamla shekidesh et Marta bat Baitus. This happened. Yoshua ben Gamla was a Kohen, and he was Mekadesh Marta bat Baitus. Uminau hamelech liot Kohen Gadol, and the Melech chose him to be Kohen Gadol. Uknasa, and then he had chuppah with her. And the Mishnah also says Shomeret Yavam shenefla lifnei Kohen Hediot. If a lady is an almana, she wants to do yibum to a Kohen. V'nidmane liot Kohen Gadol, and then that Kohen was chosen to be Kohen Gadol, af al pisha asaba ma'amar, even if he already did ma'amar and he was ready to do yibum, harei ze lo yichnos. He can't do the yibum.
You have to give him.
Okay, Tan Rabbanan. Minayin she'im yires ta'almanav nidmane liot Kohen Gadol sheichnos. How do we know that, where do we see that if he was chosen to be the Kohen Gadol, he's allowed to go through with the Kiddushin? Meaning he already did Kiddushin to an Almana and he was chosen to be Kohen Gadol. How do we know that he's allowed to have chuppah? Talmud lomar yikach isha, because the pasuk could have said, it says ki'im betula me'amav yikach. It says he can only take a betula, but it adds the word isha. It says ki'im betula me'amav yikach isha. So those words yikach isha seem to indicate that there is a situation where he could take one of these forbidden women, and that's this case when he already did the kiddushin beforehand and then he was chosen to be the Kohen Gadol. Then he can take an almana. So yachi shomeret yavam nami. So the Gemara says if that's the case, you have a drasha, so include shomeret yavam as well. If the lady fell to yibum and then he was chosen to be Kohen Gadol, he could do yibum. So no, it says isha yikach isha velo yevama, not including yevama. Okay, maaseh
He has a
beyoshua.
choice. He has a choice not to marry with the Chalisa, but the other one, the Kohen, he already Kiddushin with the Almano.
Right, it doesn't make a difference.
It's not easy to just back up from the...
Why? Chalitza and get are very similar.
Yeah.
He could just like by
Your Chalisa, that's it.
right, but he could give a get also. When he did Kiddushin, he could give a get and she could go. Okay, either way, Minau. So it says Maaseh Yoshua. So we had a story with Yoshua ben Gamla that he was Mekadesh Marta bat Baitus, and then the king chose him to be the Kohen Gadol, and he had the chuppah. So the Gemara makes an interesting diuk. Minahu in nitmane lo. It sounds like they chose him, like the government chose him to be Kohen Gadol, but he wasn't officially voted properly to become Kohen Gadol. That's what it sounds like. Minahu means they appointed him like the government appointed him. Nitmane means he was officially appointed. So, Amar Rav Yosef Katir Kachazina Acha. Rav Yosef says, I see something fishy over here, some like corruption. It sounds like, he wasn't voted in to be the Kohen Gadol in the proper way. Damar Avasi Tarka Vadedin Riaila Le Marta Bat Baitus Leana Malka Ademuki Le Yoshua Ben Gamla Bekwani Rav Rave. What happened was the lady Marta Bat Baitus, who was an almana, she was very, very rich. And when Yoshua ben Gamla, who was a Kohen, was Mekadesh her, she went to the government, she went to the Melech, and she gave him some money. She bribed him to put Yoshua ben Gamla as Kohen Gadol. She wanted her husband to be the Kohen Gadol, so she bribed his way into it. This was, you have a few places in Shas that you see that during the time of Bayit Sheni, especially the end of the time of Bayit Sheni, there was a bit of corruption when it comes to Kohanim and buying into being Kohen Gadol. Okay, Kohen Gadol shemet achiv. Choletz, Shemet achiv choletz lo yivaveh. a Kohen Gadol that he died, the brother does chalitza, not yibum, yibum. Okay, so kapasik v'tani lo shna min erusin lo shna mina nisuin. So Kohen Gadol, I'm sorry, it's Kohen Gadol shemet achiv cholet, right? The Kohen Gadol that his brother died.
Kohen Gadol.
Yeah, so the brother died. He does, the Kohen Gadol has to do chalitza.
He cannot do Yevamot.
He cannot do Yibum because it's an almana. So the Gemara says, Kapasik v'tani lo shna min erusin lo shna mina nisuin. It sounds like it doesn't matter if she's an almana from erusin or almana mina nisuin. So bishlam min nisuin asev lo ta'asehu. If she's an almana from nisuin, meaning she already had bia, so and she's falling to the Kohen Gadol, so there's an lo ta'aseh of almana and an aseh of taking a betula, that she's not a betula and she's an almana. So ve'en aseh doche lo ta'aseh v'aseh. The aseh of yibum is not going to be doche lo ta'aseh of almana and aseh of betula. Ela min erusin yavo aseh ve'itche lo ta'aseh. But if she never had bia, she just got kiddushin, and then she became an almana, and then the man was niftar, the brother of the Kohen Gadol was niftar. So that's aseh versus lo ta'aseh. You have an aseh of yibum and a lo ta'aseh of almana. So the aseh of yibum should override the lo ta'aseh of almana. You should be able to do yibum. So the Gemara says you're right. Gezerah bia rishona atu bia shniya. The reason he cannot do yibum is because we're worried there's a heter for the first bia. The first bia is the mitzvah. So there he has an aseh of yibum that would override the lo ta'aseh. But we're worried that if he does bia rishona, he's gonna do a second bia also. So gezerah bia rishona that he cannot do because he may come to do the second bia. Okay, Kohen hediot lo yisa ilonit ela im ken yesh lo isha ubanim. So Kohen hediot cannot marry an ilonit. We're gonna explain why in a moment. Kohen hediot cannot marry an ilonit unless he has isha ubanim, unless he has already a wife and children. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afal Pi sheyesh lo isha ubanim. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kohen can marry an Ilonit. He cannot marry an Ilonit even if he has a wife and children. Lo yisa Ilonit, shehi zonah hamura b'Torah. He holds, Rabbi Yehuda holds an Ilonit. Ilonit again is a lady who she has some physical defect that she's not maturing and she can't have children. Right. So Rabbi Yehuda says she's a zonah.
Why?
Okay, we're gonna see what his definition of zona is in a moment. Chachamim hold that no, zona is only someone a gioret, mishuchreret, and the shivcha that was freed, or somebody who had a gioret is considered in halacha zona because she's becheskat that she had bia beforehand. So we consider gioret a zona in halacha.
Only gior we call it as a zona.
In halacha, because there's a chazaka that she had bia already.
But the kids that they have is not halal.
If they're married to a kohen,
No,
but
if
a regular
married to Kohen. Oh yeah, not married to.
Yeah, this is talking about zona that's asur for a kohen. So mishuchred and gioret mishuchred and then. Okay, so either way, the first line of the Mishnah said that a kohen cannot marry an ilonit. Now, Amar le reish galuta Rav Huna mai ta'ama. What's the reason a kohen cannot marry an ilonit? Mishum pirya v'rivya, because he has to do pirya v'rivya, and ilonit cannot have children. So the Gemara says, pirya v'rivya kohanim u'de mefakde Yisrael mefakde. Why only kohanim? Yisrael also is supposed to have pirya v'rivya, so they also shouldn't marry ilonit. So Amar le, you're right. It applies to Yisrael also. But why do we say kohanim? Mishum kabay lemidni sefer Rabbi Yehuda Omer Afal Pi sheyesh lo isha veyesh lo banim lo yisa ilonit. Right, top of the next page. She zona hamura b'Torah. In the next sentence, in the next line of the Mishnah, we want to explain Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a kohen, even if he has another wife and children and he already did pirya v'rivya, he cannot marry ilonit, because he holds ilonit is considered zona. So since we're gonna be that's specific to Kohanim, right? The Azona Kohanim hu de mefakedi Yisrael o mefakedi. Kohanim are commanded not to be with a Zona. Yisrael is not commanded. So therefore, Mishumach Katani Kohen. That's why it mentions Kohen. Meaning, the first line of the Mishnah says that a Kohen cannot marry an Ailonit because he's not doing Pirya V'Rivya. So that's not. Anybody should not marry Ailonit because you're being Mevatel Pirya V'Rivya. So why does it say specifically Kohen? So the Gemara explained the reason it says specifically Kohen is because of the next line is going to say that a Ailonit is a Zona, and even if a Kohen already did Pirya V'Rivya, he shouldn't marry an Ailonit. So because we want to mention the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, we make it that we're talking about a Kohen. But in theory, it's true. The Yisrael also should not marry an Ailonit, according to the first reason. Okay, unless he already has Pirya V'Rivya. He already has another wife. Amar Rav Huna, Mai Ta'amad Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he say that an Ailonit is a Zona? Where does he get that definition from? So later on, we're going to bring a braita, a bunch of different opinions of what, when it says a Kohen cannot marry a Zona, what makes somebody Zona. So this is just the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Dichtiv, Achlu v'lo yisbau, hiznu v'lo yifrotzu. There's a pasuk that says, Achlu, they ate, v'lo yisbau, and they don't become full. Hiznu, they have zinut, v'lo yifrotzu, and they don't spread out. They don't populate the world. So what does he learn from there? Kol bia she'ein ba pirza, any bia that is with somebody that is not possible for them to have children, en ayla bilat zinut. That's what's considered zinut for Kohanim. When we think of znut, we think of something bad. It's not. It's in this context of a Kohen not being allowed to be with a Zona, he learns from this pasuk that Zona is someone who had a bia with a lady who it's not possible for her to have children. That's called Beilat Zunut. And that would be forbidden for Kohanim. So therefore he holds Ailonit is forbidden for Kohanim. Okay, Tanya. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer holds the following. Kohen lo yisa ktana. Kohen cannot marry ktana. So from the rest of the Amud until the Mishnah is going to go on this halacha, that a Kohen cannot marry a ktana. So Amar le Rav Chisda le Rabba. So Rav Chisda, he said to Rabba, he said, Pok ein ba. He said, go look into this halacha that Rabbi Eliezer says that a Kohen cannot marry a katana. Tilurta ba'i la Rav Huna minach. Because, tomorrow Rav Huna is going to come and he's going to ask you about this. He's going to want to know about this halacha. So go find the explanation of this halacha, what this is, that a Kohen cannot marry a katana. So go, look into it. So Nafak, Ienba. So he went, he looked into it. Rabbi Eliezer Savar La K'Rabbi Meir v'Savar La K'Rabbi Yehuda. He says, I understand where Rabbi Eliezer is coming from, that he says that a Kohen cannot marry a Ketana. He must hold like Rabbi Meir and like Rabbi Yehuda. Now, what is this? Savar La K'Rabbi Meir, Dechayish Lemiuta. He holds like Rabbi Meir. The Rabbi Meir's opinion in Shas is he's Choshesh Lemiut, which means if there's a small percentage of something happening, Rabbi Meir is worried about it. V'savar la Rabbi Yehuda damar ailonit zonahi havia, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that ailonit is a zona. So what comes out is that he holds the Kohen cannot marry a katana because maybe there's a chance that this katana is really going to be an ailonit. She's too young to tell right now, but maybe she's going to be part of that small percentage of ladies that's going to be an ailonit. And an ailonit would be a zona. So if you hold those two things, he can't marry the ketana. If you hold we're worried about her being part of that small percentage, and an ailonit is a zona, so then she cannot marry, then the Kohen cannot marry a ketana. So now the Gemara questions this. The Gemara says, you're telling me Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Meir, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says it's not true. Rabbi Meir misavarla, he holds like Rabbi Meir. V'atanya, katan u'ktana lo choltzin v'lo miyavemin. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says that if you have a katan or a ktana that's waiting to do yibum, they cannot do chalitza or yibum. So why? Amr lo Rabbi Meir, yafeh amart she'en choltzin. It says, Rabbi Meir. They said to Rabbi Meir, Chachamim said to Rabbi Meir, the katan doesn't do chalitza. That's good. That we agree with you. Why? Because ish ktiv beparsha. Because it says in the pasuk, im lo yachpotz ha'ish. So when it introduces chalitza, it says ish. And we learn ish and not katan. Katan cannot do chalitza. Umakshinan isha li'ish. And the same way that a katan cannot do chalitza, a ktana cannot do chalitza. So that we agree. But ella mai ta'ama en miyavmin. If
has
she,
nothing to do with the girl.
if she's, yeah, the chalitza is she takes off his shoe, she spits. It's a whole process. So if the man is a katan, he cannot have chalitza done. And if the lady is a katan, she is a katana, she also cannot do chalitza.
Because usually men give chalitza to the lady.
Men, well, it's a whole process that's done. The lady is the one that removes the shoe and she spits.
Chalitza, that means the man gives it to the lady. The process, of course, the shoes, you take off the shoes, speed, those stuff.
Right, but the lady, neither, if either one of them is a katana, you can't do chalitza. So the Chachamim said, okay, that we hear, Rabbi Meir. But my ta'ama en miyavemin. Why don't we do yibum? What's the problem with doing yibum? So for a katan and a katana. So amar le katan shema imtza saris. Katan can't do yibum because maybe he's gonna be a saris. It's gonna come out that he's gonna have some issue of sirus. And katana, a katana, you can't do yibum to a katana shema timtza ailonit, because maybe she's gonna turn out to be an ailonit, and an ailonit is excluded from yibum. Right? V'nimtzu pogin be'erva, and if that's the case, it's gonna end up that he's being with eshet ach shelo bimkom mitzvah, not in a situation of mitzvah, because an ailonit is excluded from yibum. We learn from the pasuk that has to be somebody who can have children. So Vetanya, so that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Vetanya ktana miyavemet ve'ena choletzet divrei Rabbi Eliezer. And what does Rabbi Eliezer hold? Rabbi Eliezer holds that a katana can do yibum. So you see, Rabbi Eliezer does not hold like Rabbi Meir. Meaning, we tried to say Rabbi Eliezer held that a kohen cannot marry a katana, right? So we said, he holds like Rabbi Meir, that we're worried that maybe she's going to be an ailonit. So you see that he doesn't hold that way, because by yibum, Rabbi Meir says, can't do yibum to a katana because maybe she's going to be an ailonit. And Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you could do yibum to a katana. What do you see? He's not worried that a katana is going to end up being an ailonit. So you see that Rabbi Eliezer does not hold like Rabbi Meir. So so it cannot be that Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Meir. So we're going to need some explanation why Rabbi Eliezer says that a kohen cannot marry a katana. And also the Gemara says Uk Rabbi Yehuda misavarla. Does he also hold like Rabbi Yehuda? He holds that a ailonit is not allowed to marry a kohen. Vatanya, we have a braita as follows. So zona. What is a zona that cannot marry a kohen? Right. So we had Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that Rabbi Yehuda said any bia with somebody that is not able to populate, that's biyat zinut. But what are the other opinions? That was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. So Vatanya zona kishma. Zona is like what she is, meaning an esherish that zona is an esherish that was with somebody else. The very Rabbi Eliezer. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Rabbi Akiva omer zona zu mufkeret. Rabbi Akiva holds zona is a mufkeret. It's somebody who just is open to having bia with, she's mafkir herself for bia.
Mufkeret, what that means?
It means like she makes herself hefker for bia. She's
like a zona?
That's Rabbi Akiva says that's the definition of a zona. Zona is meaning that type of it doesn't have to be
available for everybody.
Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be that she had a bia of isur or she was an eshet ish or anything like that. It could be a single woman who's open to having bia with other people who are kasher, but still that makes her zona. Even if it's not kasher, that's worse. But Rabbi Akiva holds this makes her zona. Rabbi Matya ben Charash omer afilu halach ba'ala lahashkota uba alea bederech asa zona. Rabbi Matya ben Charash says even a lady who she has any bia that's not allowed. So even if her husband accused her of being sota, so now she's asur to her husband, and her husband had bia with her afterwards. That makes her a zona, because that was a bia of isur. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, zona zu ailonit. Rabbi Yehuda said zona is an ailonit, like we had before. V'chachamim omrim ein zona ela gioret umeshuchreret v'sheniv'ala be'ilat zenut. They hold that zona is gioret, meshuchreret, and somebody who had be'ilat zenut, somebody who had a bia that to someone who's pasul to her. So, what do you see? You see, one more opinion. Rabbi Eliezer really supposed to be Rabbi Azar Omer Panui Haba la Pinuya Shelo L'Shem Yishut Asa Zona. He holds any bia that's not L'Shem marriage it makes her zona. So if two people have bia not for the purpose of marriage, just for the purpose of zunut, that makes her zona. So what do you see from here? You see that Rabbi Eliezer does not hold that ailonit is a zona. So we're back to square one.
If that doesn't make sense. If the lady, one lady, okay, she go and sleep with everybody and be kavanah that she wants to have a baby. Oh, but this
kavanah of marriage. Kavanah of marriage.
Kavanah that I'm going to have a baby.
No, not going to have a baby, of marriage. That's for the purpose of marriage.
No, purpose of he said if the bia it doesn't have anything, I don't have a kavanah for having a bia, it's a zona.
No, it didn't say that. It said panui abala panui shelo lishem ishut, not for the purpose of a marriage relationship.
I thought we said something.
Yeah, that makes her a zona. So the question that we're back to is, we said in the very top of this amud that what's it called? We said on the top of this amud that Rabbi Eliezer holds that a kohen cannot marry a ktana. The reason we said was, well, he holds like Rabbi Meir and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Ktana might become an ailonit. We proved that it's not true. He doesn't hold that way. So what's the reason Rabbi Eliezer holds that he cannot marry a ktana? Kohen cannot marry a ktana. So Ella Amar Rav Ada Bar Ahava Hacha beKohen Gadol Askinan. He said we're talking about a Kohen Gadol. That's what Rabbi Eliezer is talking about when he says she cannot marry a ktana. Le'emat kanila, when a Kohen Gadol has kiddushin to a ktana, so when is he koneh her? Lechi gadla, when she becomes a gedola. So beulahi, at that point she's no longer a betula, she's a beula. So she cannot have, the Kohen Gadol cannot marry a ktana. Meaning, he's saying Kohen Gadol cannot marry a ktana, because if he marries a ktana, and then by the time she becomes a gedola, and the marriage is solidified, he's gonna have, she's already gonna have had bia with him, and she's gonna be a beula at that point. So Amar Rava says, what are you talking about? Michli Lev, you're completely wrong. If she's a ktana that the father accepted kiddushin for her, so ma'ishata udekanila. He's not koneh her when she becomes adult. He's koneh her right now, and there's no problem that she's not gonna. It doesn't matter that she's gonna be a beula later. He's koneh her as a betula. V'idikitsha nafsha, and if she was mekadesh herself. So Rabbi Eliezer hivlo Rabbanan. This is not something that's specific to Rabbi Eliezer. That's true. Every kohen cannot, he can't be mekadesh a lady without her father, and that for sure. So Ella Amar Rava. So rather Rava says, what's the case that Rabbi Eliezer says that a kohen cannot marry a ktana? Leolam bekohen hediot. We're talking about a regular kohen. V'chayshinan shema titpate alav. He says, you know why a kohen is not allowed to marry a ktana? Because we're worried he's going to be mikadesh the ktana, and a ktana is gonna, she's very young and innocent, and somebody else is going to convince her to go with them and have bia with them. So the Gemara says, Ihachi Yisrael nami. So if that's the case, Yisrael also, we should be worried that he can't marry a ktana, because we should be worried that somebody else is going to convince her to have bia with them. So the Gemara says, no, there's a difference. What's the difference? Very, very important line. Pitui ktana onesu. If someone is mefateh ktana, they convince a ktana to go have bia with them, that's ones. The ones b'Yisrael mishra shari. And if that happens to Yisrael, that's mutar. Meaning if a Yisrael marries a ktana and someone else convinces her to have bia with them, she doesn't become asur on her husband because that's considered ones. Pitui ktana ones. But by a kohen, ones is not allowed. So if a kohen marries a ktana, we're worried that someone is going to come convince her to have bia because she's ktana, she's young, innocent, she doesn't understand these things, and she's going to do it, and it's ones. Rav Papa says different understanding. He says Kohen Gadol. We're really talking about a Kohen Gadol cannot marry Ktana. V'hai Tanahu, and it's the following opinion. Detanya Bitula. It says Kohen Gadol has to marry a Bitula. So Yachol Ktana. I might think a Ktana also. Talmud Lomar Isha. Pasuk says no. The Kohen Gadol has to marry someone who's a Bitula and an Isha. So he cannot marry Ktana. So Isha Yachol Bogeret. Okay, so I might think Bogeret is allowed because Isha is much older. Talmud Lomar Bitula, but it says Bitula. She needs to have her Bitulim complete. So okay, so how does this work? On the one hand, she has to be Isha, which means she has to be older. But on the other hand, she needs to be Bitula. She needs to have all of her Bitulim, so she needs to be younger. So Yatzta Michlal Ktatnut Ulichlal Bagrut Lo Ba'ata. That she's left, she's no longer a katana, but she's not yet a bogeret. She's in that stage of being a na'ara. That's who a Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry, and that's what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Hai Tana. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says very similar. He says no, it's the following Tana Hu Detanya Betula Ein Betula Ela Na'ara. When it says Betula, that Kohen Gadol has to marry a Betula, it means a Na'ara. V'chen hu omer v'hana'ara tovat mar'eh me'od Betula. It says that the Na'ara is tovat mar'eh me'od. This was by...
They said that the Bogeret, she's going to lose some of their Betula, yeah?
Yes.
And after Bogeret is a Na'ara, yeah?
No, before Bogeret is Na'ara. It goes Ketana, Na'ara, Bogeret. So Bogeret is that stage where she still has all of her... I'm sorry, Na'ara is that stage where she still has all of her Betulim, but she's no longer a Ketana.
How old is Na'ara?
So, Na'ara is once she sees Simanim, once she sees 2 hairs or 12 years old, for 6 months. She's a Na'ara until she becomes Bogeret. So that's who a Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry.
Bogeret is 12 years?
Bogeret is 6 months after she becomes a Na'ara, after she has 2 hairs. That's a 12 and a half. So, but that stage of Na'ara, that's who a Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry. And we have a different Braita that also teaches when it says Betula, it's referring to a Na'ara. Ein Betula ela Na'ara. V'chen hu omer. It says in the Pasuk, this Pasuk is talking about Rivka, that when Eliezer first sees Rivka, it says V'hana'ara tovat mar'eh me'od. It says she was tovat mar'eh me'od. Right, Rabbi Eliezer, right, so that's a Betula, and she was a Betula. So you see that Na'ara, Betula is Na'ara. They're just interesting Tosfot here. You know, we always learn that Rivka was 3 years old. But Tosfot says, you see the Gemara is making, it says Na'ara, Betula, Na'ara. So Tosfot actually brings a whole cheshbon based off of a midrash to show that Rivka was really 14. He makes a calculation. He says 14. So he says there's two conflicting.
When did he get 3 years old?
It's a midrash that she was born when Yitzchak had the Akedah, and Yitzchak was 37 when he had the Akedah, and he was 40 when he married Rivka. So she must have been 3 years old. He says that's one midrash, but there's a different midrash that Tosfot quotes that according to the other midrash, she comes out that she was 14 at then. Yeah. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Panuya Bala Panuya Shelo Yeshem Yishut Asa Zona. We brought earlier in the Braita the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said any bia that's not for the purpose of Yishut makes her a Zona. So Amar Rav Amram ein halacha Rabbi Eliezer. Rav Amram says halacha is not like Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, we'll stop here.